Greetings, Craddock here. We're going to talk about the Trag'Oul Blood Nova T16 Nephalem rifting setup for keys, Death's Breath, gold farm, all sorts of good things going on with this build. Really enjoy the pull from the Brig's Wrath combined with the mobility, just feels super smooth, super nice. So let's dive in. So a huge thing that this build has going for it is that it does not need a sanctified power to function. Sure, the spirit projectiles from the sanctified power are beneficial against targets that stay alive a long time, so it's going to be beneficial for your low greater rifting setup and in your Nephalem rifting versus the Rift Guardian some of the time, but for the most part you're basically one-shotting mobs almost all over the place with the new multipliers. So even at lower paragons, I'm testing this build at 800 paragon, flying through rifts, and it's just demolishing everything. So I don't think you need the Sanctified power, which is really cool versus, maybe the Magic Missile T16 build on Wizard, for example. You definitely need the Sanctified power for that to work. So in terms of getting this up and running, you're going to be able to get this build put together a lot quicker, a lot easier. Notably, there are a lot of affixes here that you just don't need, which is another benefit. So the attack speed increase is nice. The having a little bit of additional cooldown to move around is nice. The additive damage also nice, but if you had none of those things and just had int vitality on all your gear pieces, you could still clear the rift rather comfortably even. So yeah, this is another benefit. So the Guardian's 2Ps, increasing our int fight, strength, and dexterity by 100%. Very nice indeed. It's going to give us more base toughness so that we don't necessarily need the gold wrap in this build. Notably, the bonus here is not only increasing affixes on gear, but also gems from your chest and pads. So I've included a mix of offense and defense, topazes, and I've gone rubies in the pads to give extra armor, and this is going to get doubled as well. So if you want to go either way, go full topazes or full rubies, this is also an option. Keep in mind that the Blood Nova is going to spend health with this build, so it's very important that we basically decimate enemies so that we do not have to spam this ability too often. The Enchantress as well, you can spec her out to be a little bit more tanky and even place the Guardian's 2Ps for the lower Paragon setup. Very advantageous to hit that 25k value and benefit fully from the abilities that she's going to give. Using that gains access to all skills token. Broken Crown is going to be hugely beneficial for getting those extra gems during the season, so I would include that as well. One neat thing about the Guardians is that it's increasing your base toughness, which means you don't really have to bother with picking up gold to get your toughness up and active as you would with the gold wrap, but you are losing out on a little bit of mobility via the Warzekian arm guards, so we are trading off movement speed to be able to fit this in. And on the note of movement speed, we still include a lot of movement speed via the Stewart's Greaves, Fueled by Death, combined with Devour, of course. We have the Hoarder Gem, and we have the Wreath of Lightning. We also have the the Gloves of Worship, which are going to give us the fleeting buff as well. We also have mobility via the Harvest of Anguish, going to give us DR and up to 10% from hitting enemies with cold. Because we're not going dislocation here, we're not proccing our Crisbin tripled bonus as readily, but that doesn't seem to be an issue with the increased multipliers from your Iron Rose in play. I have included the Illusory Boots in the build, which are just super smooth because we're pulling in enemies from so far away with the Brig's Wrath. A lot of times what will happen is the pull will place them right in front of your character, which can be disruptive while you're traveling through the rift. The Illusory Boots make this super smooth. You're able to go right through them as they're pulled in, so that even if it's just a little bit of trash mobs and they're not worth actually casting your Death Nova on, you can just skip them. And so this is one of the highlights that I quite enjoy with this particular configuration. In fact, one of the neat things about this build is that because your DPS is centered around the character and we are running through the rift for the most part, we're able to more easily pick up items, click on doors, pylons, anything and everything you would need to do is super smooth. Especially with increased pickup radius, going to be a focus of the build with the Avarice Band Boon of the Hoarder combo. It's going to be emanated, giving us a lot of pickup radius. You can opt for some additional pickup radius on gear if you would prefer, or you could just throw on some gold find affixes, and this will increase the radius of your aura of frailty. And this is very important because it will mean that you're able to pull mobs from farther away via your Brig's Wrath bonus and just be able to clear the rift more efficiently in this manner. Now at the beginning of the rift, you might not be super tough because the 4-piece needs to stack up overhealing. So for the overhealing in this build, we are running Dark Reaping in combination with Cannibalize to get our 4-piece up and running. So as you kill monsters, the corpses and kill will just buff you up quite nicely. You do get all the runes of Blood Rush now, so this is quite nice. You get Transfusion if you're teleporting through mobs, plus the armor from Potency is really nice. The double jump from the Metabolism rune is also really good to have here, because even though we don't have really high cooldown, we have a decent level of cooldown and are able to get through the rift in an adequate pace. Simulacrum health is not an issue. Even if you snapshot it before you have your 4-piece active, you can just go into the rift, cast them, and 99% of the time they will not die in the rift, which is pretty cool. They do get increased health if you recast after your 4-piece stacks up though, so if that's necessary or you feel you have a channeling pylon, you can totally do that. Yeah, we're still running Blood-Tide Blade, so damage scales with density, obviously. Quite a nice aspect. Single target is still, at the Nephalem Rifting level, fairly healthy. So I have opted for Final Surface for that double second life, which is quite nice for this Nephalem Rifting setup. Very comfortable, especially since you are still a Necromancer. However, if you want more DPS, I think Spreading Malediction would be a great pick for this particular build. I would avoid the Blood for Blood passive because, again, you do want to spend health to be able to stack up your multiplier with the Iron Rose. One thing you do want to do to maintain your Scythe of the Cycle multiplier in this build is continue to cast your Bone Armor. Just make sure it doesn't drop. Because we are casting Blood Nova so rarely, this is fairly easy to do, but just make sure you keep up your Bone Armor, and that will be quite fine. If you want a lazier setup, and you don't want to maintain this, you can swap this out for the Trag'Oul's Corroded Fang. However, it is a significantly lower multiplier, so for the low Greater Rifting version, the GR90 version of this build, we're going to replace those mobility gems with multiplier gems, just so we can kill monsters a little bit more readily in the GR setting. So we have the Zai Stone of Vengeance and the Bane of the Powerful. The stun from the Zai does come in handy on occasion, and then we have the elite damage from the Bane of the Powerful, useful for those single target Rift Guardians, really the only monsters in the Rift that are going to be extremely difficult to kill. And it's very important that we end up killing them quickly, because we have a limit in the amount of health that we can spend before we're basically out of resource. So the auto-proc Spirit Projectiles do come in handy for this particular build in that scenario as well. We're going to run mobility via the Harvest of Anguish. You could, if you are still concerned with that single target damage, place the Dislocation rune instead to get an extra stun for your Charisma proc. However, I found Harvest of Anguish to be a nice source of mobility, consistent mobility, and it just makes it easier to keep up the Scythe of the Cycle bonus when you don't care about accidentally stunning enemies and like not pulling them correctly, sort of thing. And then we also have the Spreading Malediction, giving us just a touch of extra additive damage, again, just to be able to clear slightly faster.